Okay, so as of right now, I'm gonna tell you guys a story about a man named James Tilly Matthews in the heirloom. It is called The Illustrations of Madness, exhibiting a singular case of insanity and a no less remarkable difference in medical opinion, developing the nature of assailment in the manner of working events with the description of the tortures experienced. So this is the story. It's like 19 pages, but this essay was written by Mike J. But it's extremely detailed, and I really appreciate and respect this story because it details the accounts of everything that's going on today with targeted individuals. And a lot of people don't know about James Tilly Matthews, and a lot of people don't know that this situation didn't just start in 1956 when the CIA was trying to create like a MK Ultra program. This entire system was built long ago, long time ago. So okay, so okay. Mike J. recounts the tragic story of James Tilly Matthews, a former peace activist of the Napoleonic Wars, who was confined to London's notorious Bedlam Asylum in 1797. So this is going back almost 223 years ago. For believing that his mind was under the control of the heirloom, a terrifying machine whose mesmeric rays and mysterious gases were brainwashing politicians and plunging Europe into a revolution, terror, and war. And this is a picture of a man operating the heirloom. I've been trying to, I'm going to post a link in the video, but you can look at the pictures of how it used to be compared to the machinery, the weapon system that they created now. In 1810, John Haslam, a London apothecary, so an apothecary is nothing but a pharmacist, published the first ever book-length description of a mad person's delusions. Until this point, most medical case histories of what we now refer to as mental illness had amounted to a line or two at most, and more often just a single word such as frenzied or melancholy. But the opinions of James Tilly Matthews resisted any such summary. He described a previously unimagined world of futuristic machines, magnetic spies, and mass brainwashing, woven into a bizarre but undeniably well-informed narrative of the high politics behind the Napoleonic Wars. Haslam titled his book Illustrations of Madness, and it was full of lessons for the developing profession of mad doctoring, later to be known as psychiatry. But it was also written to settle a personal score. Haslam was the pharmacist at the Royal Bethlehem Hospital, in popular slang, Bedlam. So, I don't know if a lot of people ever heard of the Bedlam mental asylum, but it's known for its hauntings and its tragic tales of people being chained and locked up and misdiagnosed, mistreated. It's where certain prominent families sent their family members when they just wanted to get rid of them. Where James Tilly Matthews had for the previous decade been confined as an incurable lunatic. Not everyone, however, believed that Matthews was mad. Haslam's diagnosis had been contested by other doctors, contested meaning challenged, and the governors of Bethlehem had distanced themselves from it. He wrote his book in retaliation against his superiors, but as it turned out, his patient would have the last word. So basically, it's the foreshadowing that James Tilly Matthews basically got his revenge as the story continues. Although Haslam had been relegated, so basically dismissed to a footnote in history of psychiatry, his account of Matthews' inner world is still cited as the first fully described case of what we now call paranoid schizophrenia, and in particular of an influencing machine. The belief or delusion that a covertly operated device is acting at a distance to control the subject's mind and body. For everyone who had messages beamed at them by the CIA, MI5, Masonic lodges, or UFOs via dental fillings, mysterious implants, TV sets, or surveillance satellites, James Tilly Matthews is patient zero. This is why this story is extremely important. It's the first documented case to discredit paranoid schizophrenia. History is extremely important when you're going through certain situations like this. So let me recap real quick. Not only did this program not start in 1956, it dates back all the way to 1797. Not only is there documented proof of the first patient, it shows that it's a system built in place, and I think 1797, 1776, it was right around the time the United States actually was founded. Along with it's a whole bunch of history tied into this story. But that was over 223 years ago. So, James Tilly Matthews is patient zero. The first documented one. Lord knows how many was before that. Over the 10 years Haslam and Matthews had spent together in Bedlam, Matthews revealed his secret world to Haslam. Haslam again is the pharmacist. In exhaustive detail. Around the corner from Bedlam, in a dank basement cellar by London Wall, a gang of villains were controlling and tormenting him with a machine called an heirloom. Matthews had even drawn a technical diagram of the device, which Haslam included in his book, with a sarcastic commentary that invited the reader to laugh at its absurdity. A literal illustration of madness. But Matthews' drawing has a more unnerving effect than Haslam allows. Levers, barrels, batteries, brass retorts, and cylinders are rendered with the cool conviction of an engineer's blueprint. It is the first ever published work of art by an asylum inmate, but it would hardly have looked out of place in the scientific journals or encyclopedias of today. This passage explains their relationship and Matthews' knowledge of the weapons that the three-letter organizations utilized to torture him. The heirloom worked, as its name suggests, by weaving airs or gases, so frequencies, into a warp of magnetic fluid, which was then directed at its victim, so us, the targeted individuals. Matthews' explanations of its powers combined the cutting-edge technologies of pneumatic chemistry in the electric battery with the controversial science of animal magnetism or mesmerism. The finer detail becomes increasingly strange. It was fueled by combinations of fetid effluvia. I'm sorry, y'all, but I wrote a side note. It basically means gaseous waste. Like a fetid smell is gaseous waste, including spermatic animal seminal rays, putrid human breath, and gas from the anus of a horse. In its magnetic warp assailed Matthews' brain in a catalog of forms known as event workings. These included brain scenes, so invasive thought processes. They were hitting him with the electromagnetic frequencies and implanting thoughts into his head. Now, this was over 223 years ago. They use dream working, which is the dream manipulation that we experience and what we go through. So they cause us nightmares to keep us in a stress-filled state. by which thoughts were forced into his brain against his will, in a terrifying array of physical tortures, from knee nailing, vital tearing, and fiber ripping to apoplexy, working. So ruptured apoplexy workings means ruptured blood vessels in the brain, with the nutmeg grater. Don't ask. And the dreaded lobster cracking. So basically, cracking, using the nervous system to push muscles, destroy bones, destroy organs, where the air around his chest was constricted until he was unable to breathe. To facilitate their control over him, the gang had implanted a magnet in his brain. He was tormented constantly by hallucinations, so those projected images that they can project through our sensory nervous system. Physical agonies, so all the pain that they cause us internally. Give me 1 sec. Physical agonies, fits of laughter, or being forced to parrot whatever words they chose to feed into his head. No wonder some people thought he was mad. So forced speech, when they put words in your head and basically you said and you're like, why did I say that? Why did I feel like saying that? It's called forced speech. The machine's operators were a gang of undercover Jacobin terrorists who Matthews described with haunting precision. Their leader, Bill the King, was a coarse-faced and ruthless puppet master who has never been known to smile. His second-in-command, Jack the Schoolmaster, took careful notes on the heirloom's operations, pushing his wig back with his forefinger as he wrote. The operator was a sinister, pock-marked lady known as the Glove Woman. The public face of the gang was a sharp-featured woman named Augusta, superficially charming but exceedingly spiteful and malignant when crossed, who roamed the London's West End as an undercover agent. So I'm pretty sure that reinforces the narrative that it is a lot of malevolent entities, personalities, people working in these corrupt government organizations as undercover agents, and they use these machines to torture innocent people, citizens, whatever you want to call them, humans. They use them to torture targeted individuals. The operation directed at Matthews was only part of a larger story. There were more heirlooms and their gangs concealed across London, and their unseen influence extended all the way up to the Prime Minister, William Pitt, whose mind was firmly under their control. Their agents lurked in the streets, theaters, and coffee offices. So those gang stalkers, those police officers, those undercover agents, using mass mind control to control the population, where they trickled the unsuspecting into inhaling magnetic fluids. So sometimes people will complain about gases and whatever, and feeling like they're being brainwashed or whatever, or being poisoned through the air. Maybe it's true. Maybe that's exactly what they're going through. If the gang were recognized in public, they would grasp magnetized batons that clouded the perception of anyone in the vicinity. The object of their intrigue was to poison the minds of politicians on both sides of the political system. Matthews' beliefs had their roots in his implausible but true story. A political activist and peace campaigner, he had become involved during the French Revolution in clandestine effort to head off the looming war between France and England. Shuttling between London and Paris, he had remarkable success in persuading the moderate faction of the French government to commit to a peace plan, and he had met several times with Pitt, so the Prime Minister, and Lord Liverpool, his Secretary of War, to propose an alliance with them against the Jacobins and Paris mob. So he was trying to do some good, trying to stop a war, trying to create a peace plan. He was a political activist. He was a whistleblower. He was a mediator between the mob and the mob, and I guess the countrymen. But the execution of King Louis XVI in 1793 set Britain and France on an inexorable course to war, and Matthews was eventually arrested in Paris by the Committee of Public Safety on suspicion of being an English spy. So basically, he was arrested. A plot was put in place against him to get him arrested and make him look like he was the spy. And this is what they do. They defamize your character. They discredit you. They tear you down, and they make you look like the villain when it's really them working in the backgrounds, doing shadow work and whatever. But in order to cover up their crimes, they had him arrested on suspicion of being an English spy. He remained under arrest during the height of the terror in constant fear of the guillotine. When he was released 3 years later, he limped home to England and accused Pitt, the Prime Minister, in Liverpool of abandoning a loyal patriot. His letters were ignored and his accusations became more florid. Pitt's government were secretly in league with the Jacobins and prolonging the war for their own corrupt ends. So when it comes to these people, they want power, control, and profit. That's it. The longer a war goes, the more money that they can get from the government. But not only that, it comes with a story. So-and-so survived this great war and they won and they profited off it and the country looked real good, when really everything was just a play. It wasn't even real. Many lives were probably sacrificed, and that's my problem with this system. They don't care. Finally, he confronted his betrayers in the public gallery of the House of Commons on December 30th, 1796, loudly accusing Lord Liverpool of treason. He was arrested, judged to be of unsound mind, and sent to Bedlam. And this is an example of deep state corruption. All Matthews' convoluted tales of espionage and conspiracy were considered by Haslam merely as a symptom of his madness and dealt with accordingly. His treatment of lunatics, as described in his earlier book, Observations on Insanity, 1798, stressed the need to obtain an ascendancy over the patient. So he needed control over the patients. A process, and this is speaking about Haslam, a process again, he's the psychiatrist. The pharmacist. A process comparable to training a dog or breaking in a horse. To debate with lunatics about their belief was to enter a perplexity of metaphysical mazes. Matthews in turn refused to acknowledge Haslam's authority, maintaining that he was merely a pawn of the Home Secretary. So basically, for us, that would be like Homeland Security. Yet another bit player in the international conspiracy to silence him. So at this point, Matthews assumed that Haslam was working against him as well. He assumed that he was an agent sent to torture and silence him. We're at that part of the story. Confined and neglected, Matthews' persecutory fantasies intensified, but his family refused to accept that he was mad. To them, he still appeared his lucid, intelligent, and gentle self. It was tragic but understandable that his traumatic experiences had left him with some cranky political views, so some not so popular views. Haslam's theory of insanity, however, allowed for no such generosity. As he put it in the Illustrations of Madness, so his book, madness being the opposite to reason and good sense. It appears wonderful that two opposite opinions could be entertained on the subject. Matthews was mad. No one who believed they were controlled by an heirloom could be otherwise. So basically, we are targeted individuals and we're being tortured 24/7, but everyone assumes that we're crazy. Everyone assumes that something is wrong with us, and we're not. From the people I've met, they all seem to be alert, oriented, competent, and intelligent. But no one wants to believe that because it seems pure science fiction. And there are already too many maniacs allowed to enjoy a dangerous liberty. Speaking about the gang stalkers, he banned Matthew's wife from visiting him in Bethlehem. So at this point, Haslam had banned Matthew's wife from visiting him. Matthew's family persisted with their case that he was sane and offered to guarantee his good behavior if he were released. Finally, in 1809, they were permitted to engage two physicians named Henry Clutterbuck and George Birkbeck to examine Matthews independently. Both concluded that he was in his right mind and that his alleged symptoms of madness, hostility to authority, and insistence that he was being conspired against could equally be seen as a response of a sane man unjustly confined. So basically, Matthew, you had two different physicians come in and evaluate him, and they all concluded that he was of sound mind and sound body, and they looked at it from a different perspective, that he was actually telling the truth and he was unjustly confined. On the basis of this testimony, Matthew's family served Bethlehem with a writ of habeas corpus, forcing the governors to state their legal reasons for holding him. Haslam wrote a lengthy affidavit on Matthew's case, detailing his delusions and claiming that he had made violent threats against the life of George III. In the end, however, the case turned on a short letter from the Home Secretary recommending that you do continue to detain in your hospital as a fit and proper subject James Tilly Matthews, a lunatic who is at present under your charge. They wanted to keep him basically locked up and confined in this asylum. The Bethlehem governors justified Matthews' detention on the basis that he was in the hospital by order and with the knowledge of government, and the writ of habeas corpus was rejected. Matthews, it seemed, was not a lunatic but a political prisoner, just as he had always maintained.